You were like already giving it up, and I was telling you to continue. Sorry, it just didn't make any sense. Mike, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Congratulations on Dear Evan Hansen, the show of the year, my friend.
Thanks. Yeah.
What is that like for you to be a part of the Broadway show of the year, considering this show has been a part of your life now for 2-3 years, right?
Yeah. Well, to be with the show for so long and to see it come into fruition the way it has and have the success that it has, it's very exciting. It's very rewarding, and we're just happy to do it. 8 shows a week, yeah.
8 shows a week.
8 shows
That's
a
a
week.
lot.
Yeah, it is.
Take me back to the beginning, to your audition. What did you know about the show? What did you know about the creators? What did they tell you?
Yeah. I knew nothing about the show. When I was auditioning for it, they gave me 2 scenes from the show that no longer are in the show. They didn't give me the script at all. They asked me to sing whatever I wanted to sing, so I sang 16 bars of Yesterday from the Beatles. The whole thing lasted maybe 10 minutes, and that was kind of it. And I knew that evening, they called my agents, and they were like, yeah, we want him.
Why Yesterday?
I don't know. It was the only thing I knew, I think, really.
You were unprepared, and you're like, Yesterday?
Yeah, probably. No, yeah, it was really, I wouldn't consider myself such a strong singer, and it was really the one song that I felt comfortable with doing, so.
But you've been in musicals before.
Yes.
But you wouldn't consider yourself a strong singer?
No.
Then how do you keep landing these parts?
You know, I keep fooling everyone. I really have no idea. It works out.
You're fooling like pretty important people.
Yeah, I guess so, you know. They keep hiring me. I don't know, it's their prerogative, I guess, yeah.
Now, you said, I read an interview with you where you said, then they gave you the script. It was about 200 pages, right?
Yeah.
What did that first script look like? What was the story of Dear Evan Hansen at that point?
Well, you know, the way that the writers, Stephen Levinson, our book writer, and Benj Pasek, Justin Paul, our singer-songwriters, the way that it was kind of broken down was there were it was a full-fledged play, the way that it was written out, and then with
like no songs in it?
There were songs in it, but it was not interwoven as much as it is now, and like in a true musical sense. It was a full scene and then like a song, or there were lyrics to maybe where a potential thing could be, and you know, we really had no idea what it was going to be, and it started out in a place that was a lot more satirical than it is now. I think when they first came up with the idea for the show, they were really poking fun at a generation of today. And then slowly and surely they started, when I think what a great play does is they started to ask a question, which was, when a tragedy happens, why do we, you know, as a community and as people, take on that tragedy and make it about ourselves in a way.
Right. It's easy to watch from the outside and be cynical and be like, oh, look, these people are capitalizing on a tragedy for personal gain. But then it takes that extra step to go, well, why are they doing that? And what makes this person do that?
Yeah, and they also explore and show, I think, the positive aspects that come out of it, you know, and how, you know, in times of tragedies, we do need that human connection to, you know, really do feel like we are, you know, from the same kind of earth, you know, in a way.
What was your character like in the original sort of satirical version? Compared to what he's like now?
You know, that first reading and couple readings, Connor was a kind of taunting Evan for the sake of taunting Evan, and then when he leaves the show, he never came back again. And then you pushed yourself in there. You're like, no, I think I should come back more. Like maybe I'm just on stage all the time talking to him. No, what happened was I fooled them enough where they're like, oh, let's give them more material, you know. No, and then
let's give them a song.
Yeah, why not? No, it goes hand in hand with that. They started asking the questions as to why is he the way he is, and then they, you know, started adding some things, and then they brought on this aspect of, you know, what if Evan's imaginary friendship with Connor actually did play out in a way, and you know, they have full-blown conversations, and what would that be like, and what if we gave Connor a song, and like, you know, and what would it be if Connor kept pushing Evan to keep going with this lie, and Yeah.
Well, it's this interesting element where in passing or, in someone's death, we can begin to imagine the person that we would have wanted them to be, whether we knew them or not. And it's what Evan starts doing. He didn't really know him, but he starts sort of imagining this idea of him and who he could be, as well as the girl who develops the sort of social media campaign with him. But there's always the Connor's sister who's kind of there and knows the reality. But then we see that this ends up helping her as well, that people imagine him a different way.
Absolutely, and not just her, but the whole Murphy family. I mean, all that family really needs to believe in the fact that their son wasn't as sad as he was. They really need to hold on to that fact that there were good times, there were good memories, and that his life had meaning, and that his life meant something to people. And I think that's true in a case where you look at family members who lose loved ones. They really need that for their person, that that their life had meaning, and it's extremely important to them. And I think Evan brings that to the family.
So now you're doing 8 shows a week, you said. You've been doing this show for 3 years, give or take, with it changing and developing in different ways. This incarnation of the show you've probably been doing for what, like a year and a half?
This incarnation of the show, it's really the closest adaptation to this show was formed at Second Stage off-Broadway, which we did last year, so spring of last year. So it's probably been about a year. Yeah.
And about a year. When you do a performance, you're doing 8 shows a week, does each performance still feel different for you? Or does a lot of times, you finish a performance and it's kind of like, it's like driving to your house or something, you don't even remember how you did it. It's just like, it's over.
I understand. It really does depend on the show. I've done shows where it's maybe feels monotonous in a way. But something about this show, and I think it really is a testament to the writing, because I think that it is that good, it's a reevaluation of the material every time you step on stage. And, it is fully...
It's always sort of peeling back layers for yourself.
I think in a way, it's diving further and deeper and exploring more of the character, within reason and understanding, I think, that person more. And, I think figuring out ways that an audience can see Connor in a new light, but within continuing to tell the story the way that it is supposed to be told. It's a very fulfilling show to do, 8 shows a week, and that's a very rare thing, and I'm very, very fortunate to be a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. You said that you're not much of a singer. I disagree. I saw the show. He can sing very well. Where did musical theater start for you? How did it start?
Yeah, well, growing up, I watched the old MGM films with like Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire. And
where was that?
In Ohio.
Oh, in Ohio.
Yeah, I grew up. Yeah, it was kind of
like most Ohioan kids do in the 90s.
I kind of call it like TV babysitting. My parents were like, "Oh, you're too hyperactive. Sit down and just like watch this thing." And I was like glued to the TV, and I would just watch like this guy dance, and I was like, I need to be like that guy. I want to be exactly like that guy.
So it started with dancing for you.
Absolutely, and I forced my parents to get me into dance class, but like it had to be the right dance class. I couldn't have any girls in it. Only guys, because I was a kid. I didn't want to catch cooties or whatever.
You wanted to still maintain a certain semblance of
childish
masculinity or something.
Totally, yeah. So they found the perfect dance class, and then that branched out. And
did you learn? What were the first dances that you started learning? Was it like tap?
Tap.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wanted to be like Gene Kelly, so it was like tap dancing. Absolutely.
Can you still tap really well?
Not really well, no, but I can still move, if you will. But from there it led to doing children's theater, community theater. Grew up doing theater in my high school, and just kind of always knowing that theater was going to be a part of my life and something that I wanted it. I wanted to be a part of that, and I wanted to move to New York, and I wanted to be a part of the theater scene.
And what was the first show that you auditioned for?
Professionally.
Yeah.
Oh, the first show I auditioned for professionally was a show called White Christmas. We all know the movie, maybe. And it was in Springboro, Ohio at La Commedia Dinner Theater. It was a terrible job. I got paid.
Was it? Why is that?
I was getting paid like $150 a week. I lived in the back of a McDonald's parking lot.
Like in a van, or was there an apartment?
There was like an apartment complex. I was in the back of it, you know, and but you know,
House like reek of French fries all the time?
pretty much, you know, it was pretty bad. But I was a professional performer. I was a professional actor, and I had dropped out of the conservatory program that I was going to, and I went maybe 6, 8 months without auditioning for anything because I felt too incapable. I didn't really want to put myself out there. I was too scared, too whatever. And when I booked that, it gave me enough confidence to be like, oh, well, I can actually make this happen. I can actually make this a reality. And that led to other things, yeah.
And what was sort of moving to New York? Did you move to New York with a show that you were already going to be doing?
No. I left, I graduated high school a year early to move to New York because I kind of had to get out. I went to a conservatory program for 2 semesters, and then I dropped out. I started the conservatory program that June.
Did you get a role and drop out? Like, did something?
No, I just dropped out. Yeah, I just dropped out. There was,
Good for you.
I guess, I don't know. You know, at the time.
Everybody drop note.
Yeah, at the time it seemed like the only option to do. I felt as if I had gained enough knowledge and material, and it was so stupid, you know, to say that because you can never actually like learn enough. You continue to learn, you continue to grow.
Well, you wanted to work.
I guess I felt as if I needed to put it into practical use. Yeah, I wanted to take what I had learned and, you know, I think what I had realized doing the conservatory program was that every project and every show was going to be different, and that there are no right answers, and that you know, everybody's kind of making it up as they go, and all you can really do is just throw your idea into the hat. Yeah.
How did your family respond to the sort of dropping out of the conservatory?
Man, my parents are the best. They really were, you know. I'm really fortunate in the way that my parents have always been there for me, no matter what. They have always trusted and supported me and believed in me 100%. And
Seems like you, the kind of guy though that even as a kid dropping out of the first 2 semesters of conservatory, it's not like I don't want to do this. You probably had it pretty well thought out and knew how to sort of pitch it to them, or at least convince them that you knew what you were doing.
yeah, I'm able to fool a lot of people. That's why they keep hiring me
You
for
just sang them
things, you know?
yesterday, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Good, go! You're incredibly talented."
Yeah, I just keep fooling everyone I meet. No, I don't know. Yeah, I think that, you know, they knew me well enough that there was a trust there. They you know, they trusted that I was making the right decision for me.
And what'd you book? What was the first thing you booked?
It was that dinner theater. Then
Oh no! After you left the conservatory,
yeah,
you
that
booked
was the
dinner
first
theater.
thing, and it was about maybe 9 months after I had dropped out of the conservatory program. Yeah.
So you moved to Ohio, into the back of the McDonald's.
I left Ohio just to go back for another job, you know. Yeah.
So now with Dear Evan Hansen, obviously Connor and Evan feel like they're outsiders. Connor suffers from depression, as far as we can tell. It's never really defined in the show, which it's sort of better that way. If it's defined, we could sort of kind of like distance ourselves from it a little bit easier. What sort of research did you do to play Connor, and what were you looking into?
Yeah, well, you know, there had been a huge shift in who Connor was throughout the readings and then him coming back. And I was really struggling with trying to figure out this new Connor and who he was.
Hey, can I ask, how a part of all of the shifts in Connor were you? Did you feel like you were a part of those conversations, or would they kind of come to you and be like, hey, we thought about it, we think Connor should go this way?
Yeah. The first time they really shifted the idea of it was when we were in DC, when we were about to do our first production of the show. We had just done a workshop of it, and then we got the new script for DC, and there was this new idea. And it was daunting. It was, you know, scary, because everything that I had been doing a year and a half before had been this one way, and then the tables really turned.
And was that one way that we're referring to still like you're just in the beginning of the show, you're kind of a dick, and then
Yeah, it was that aspect of it, yes. And then they, you know, hey, let's bring you back and like have a full-blown relationship with Evan. And it was daunting. It was scary. It wasn't something I was used to, especially I was doing the show for a year and a half before, developing. I thought it was this one thing, and they were like, oh, by the way, it's this now. And, you know, so DC for me was a real learning curve, and I never really got a full grasp of who Connor was. After we did our run in DC, I started kind of looking up, researching, if you will. I was Google searching suicide survivors, and really all I could find were people who had lost loved ones to suicide, except for this one website. And the one website is called livethroughthis.org, and it's run by this amazing woman named Desiree. And Desiree is a suicide attempt survivor, and now she's in, you know, recovering. And what she does is she is a photographer, and she goes around and she interviews suicide attempt survivors, people who have attempted to commit suicide, failed, survived, and she goes around and she photographs them and she interviews them, and she has this wonderful website, and it's their stories. It's these people's stories. And for me, finding that, it was extremely influential as to finding out who Connor actually kind of was.
And you're fairly committed to Live Through This as well. If you go see the show, which if you haven't already, you should. It's fantastic. In the program, you'll see that he has livethroughthis.org listed under his biography there for something for people to check out.
Well, you know, I was reading the website, and it really kind of spoke to me, and I had to get in touch with her. So I emailed her and was like, hey, you don't know me at all. I'm this guy doing this thing. Could we like have a phone conversation? And she was like, yeah, sure, really open to it. And I proceeded to kind of, you know, just ask a bunch of questions and try and figure out. And she was extremely helpful and extremely informative as to who Connor may or may not be. And the biggest thing that I had learned was that there is this era of a taboo that, you know, we don't want to affiliate or talk about people with mental health disorders by any means. You know, we really don't want to. We kind of want to glaze over it and move past it really quick. And it's, you know, something I think that is really, really important. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful job how Stephen and the book writers have integrated it within the show without forcing it upon the audience.
Well, without defining their characters by whichever disorder they might be. And I think that's fascinating when you say something like whoever Connor may or may not be, because in the beginning of the play it's left vague, and then throughout the rest of the play he's really whatever anybody imagines him to be. So what did you hang on to in terms of who Connor was, and did you sort of create your own backstory so that you could have an anchor?
I mean, the biggest thing that I held on to through reading these, you know, entries was that how they immediately feel displaced and marginalized. You know, the first thing that people are told when they're diagnosed with bipolar disorder is that they're going to be on medication for the rest of their lives. And I think for anyone to hear that, it's like, you're different, and we're gonna have to like treat you like a different person, and we're gonna have to medicate you, or, you know, not, you know, and we're gonna, like, we have to watch you. We have to put you in this box. And I think any parent or family member who has a loved one, you know, in that kind of a situation, it's hard to work with that kid. And without that person, anyone really, feeling like they're different and for the worse. And I think, you know, kids are, you know, especially at a developmental stage, you know, in high school and middle school, everybody's kind of got their own baggage, and they're all going through their own problems. And humans in general are very lazy, and they immediately put people into a box. And I think that's the biggest thing I took away from Connor, and that's what Stephen has written for Connor in those first couple of scenes that he has. You know, he has him very much this way until one scene with Evan where it is attempting to be something different. The biggest thing that Evan and Connor share are the lack of security that they can allow themselves to be seen. Because if they allow themselves to be seen, then they lose everything. They they lose a piece of themselves. They lose too much of themselves if they really allow themselves to be vulnerable and seen through the other person. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's take some questions from you people. Right here.
Hi, I was wondering how the transition between second stage and Broadway was, specifically going from such an intimate setting to like this huge Broadway theater, and how that worked.
Yeah, you know, from second stage to Broadway, there wasn't too much. There wasn't too much big storyline changes. We basically figured out what we wanted to tell story-wise. There was very minute scenes that were added or elevated in ways, maybe musical elements that were elevated in ways. Really, the biggest transition from second stage to Broadway was it's a bigger space. And it's a grander show now, especially with the technical elements and the set and everything, and filling the space. And, you know, there's real aspects of the show where it's extremely intimate and there's nothing going on stage except for the actors. And then there's elements of the show where it does the complete opposite, and it's just overwhelming how much the set takes over. And, you know, our entire creative team did such a wonderful, wonderful job setting that up. For us as the actors, because there weren't huge developmental changes with the story, we got to really sit with the material for longer without so much changes being made on a day-to-day basis. So it was really more developmental for us, getting grounded and understanding the material more, yeah.
Next question.
Hi, thanks for being here this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So my question for you is, before Dear Evan Hansen, you were a part of Newsies, another blockbuster musical. How did Newsies prepare you for this process that Dear Evan Hansen has become?
Yeah, you know, if any, I mean, obvious things, it's, you know, put me up in a large audience setting. It was doing Newsies, it informed me of what I wanted to do next, which was, you know, tell stories that were with complications, and, you know, something that I could really sink my teeth into and tell something a little bit more human. And I wouldn't have really been able to define what it was that I wanted to do, which was a show like Dear Evan Hansen, had it not been for Newsies. So that was really the biggest thing, yeah.
Having come from a love of dancing initially, are musicals sort of your first love, or is sort of acting in general your first love? Are you looking to do a sort of non-musical play?
Yeah, I mean, after Newsies, I had done some wonderful off-Broadway plays and some independent films, and those were really kind of me dipping my toes in the water as far as being able to tell a story really, you know, simplistically in that way without
Song and dance,
yeah, without
yeah.
costumes and dancing and singing, and it's very thrilling. You know, leaving Newsies and then being an actor. You know, after Newsies, I had booked the agent that I was with, and then I was kind of thrown into the world of it all and doing readings and getting into the ground stages of new shows, and, like, you know, being in that setting, that creative setting where everybody sits around at a table and everyone has their imaginary red pens out, and it's like book club almost in a way, you know, and it's you really get the aspect of artists and like what it is to be the artistry side of the process with this, and you know, it's a bunch of people trying to fix this problem, and you know, they either do or they don't, or, you know, they got some sort of blob on the table, you know, and that's really what interests me the most.
How much longer does the original cast have with Dear Evan Hansen, just so people know?
You know, the show's doing very, very well. We're selling tickets now through March of 2018.
Wow.
But I know that for sure you can catch the original cast through November of 2017.
That's great. I think we have time for one more question. Wait, no, right there.
Hey, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So if you look at like the history of musical theater and Broadway, there have been really important shows that have sort of made a huge impact on the rest of sort of the future of musical theater, and I feel that Dear Evan Hansen is going to do that. What do you think the legacy of this show will be in 10, 20, 30 years, and what kind of impact do you think it will make on the history?
So, wow, thank you.
Take it away.
Yeah. You know what I really find about what's special with Dear Evan Hansen. For a while with Broadway shows, you know, it was very common to do movie musicals. It was very common to do jukebox musicals, something that was familiar that can draw in an audience. And, you know, it was understandably so why they were doing more and more of that because of, you know, the financial crisis and what was going on economically in America. Now we're at a place where we're a little more stable economically and we're able to take a little bit more risks. What's special about Dear Evan Hansen is that it's an original story. It's not based off a book, it's not based off a movie, it's not based off of anything. And what also is extremely special with it is that 7 out of the 8 characters that you see on stage, 8 shows a week, have been with it for 3 years. And they have been in the loop developing this thing and creating this thing with the creative team. And I hope that, you know, Dear Evan Hansen is a product of that kind of work, that kind of mentality, and I hope that, you know, that continues on.
I also think one thing that we're seeing out of theater right now, I mean, specifically in musical theater, is that we're seeing flashpoints in time that are being depicted and sort of held onto. So if Dear Evan Hansen were to be restaged in like 30 years, we would see social media, we would see the way youth responds to social media and the culture responds to mental illness in the same way that in 30 years when Hamilton gets put up, people will think about the fact that Hamilton was staged in 2013 or 2014, excuse me, and what that said about, you know, race and how we viewed history. I think that's kind of the legacy that something like Dear Evan Hansen will give.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Mike, the show is called Dear Evan Hansen. It is on Broadway right now at the music. Is it at the Music Box Theater?
Music Box Theater, yes.
At the Music Box Theater through 2018. They're selling tickets, right? Get your tickets. It's unbelievable. MikeFaist, everybody. Thank you so much, Mike.
You guys, thank you so much.